Mainstream media can never admit defeat. Even when everybody is against them, they will still continue to try to push their narratives in order to show for companies like Disney. And now Forbes has put out an article titled "The Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing, but not for Star Wars or anybody affiliated with this awful project, but for the audience." I have a few things to show off, but if you enjoy the content I create, follow me on social media, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, obviously, it seems like almost everybody is hating the Acolyte, except for the reviewers. They're saying it's great and fantastic, and if you don't like it, you're just an ist and a phobe. Absolutely classic move, but nobody is being fooled by that anymore. Nobody is going to be bullied into changing their opinions, and now Forbes, and particularly Paul Tassi, who is a massive SJW, has come out and wrote this absolute embarrassment of an article. It starts off with saying, while Star Wars has had many controversies in the Disney era, viewers have now mobilized a fleet of TIE bombers to obliterate user scores of the Acolyte wherever possible, namely on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. He's completely ignoring the fact that maybe people simply just did not like this, because clearly, if there were plenty of people out there who did enjoy the Acolyte's content that's released so far, and specifically after episode 3 when scores really started to tank, they would level out. There would be plenty of 5 stars or 4 stars being added all the time. The score wouldn't have dropped to a 15%, but nobody wants to support this show because it doesn't seem like anybody enjoyed it so far. I previously reported that this started up right at release, as the Acolyte quickly became the lowest audience rated Star Wars project besides the holiday special. Now its former 33% score has dipped below the special's 20% score and is all the way down to 15%. This is what happens when you add narratives into your series that do not resonate with viewers. This is what happens when you add lesbian space witches who are creating kids by the Force. This is what happens when you throw away decades of lore in order to simply represent everybody, when that doesn't really work. Yes, it's okay to have a character who happens to be bisexual or a lesbian every once in a while, but the issue is that this is forced diversity that is not being bought by people anymore. People have seen past the fact that, oh, hey, they've added a lesbian, or oh, hey, they decided to go with this a bit more risky storyline. No, we see that this is happening consistently in every single piece of content, and people are over it. They say at a certain point, this is just absurd and says a lot more about the viewers than it does the quality of the show itself, which has barely gotten started. Now just 3 episodes, and yeah, but we're not talking about the good old days of television where you had 20 episode seasons of something. We are talking about a series that is going to have 8 episodes. So yes, we are going to rate every single episode, and we've already seen a chunk of the content that they created, the most expensive piece of Star Wars content created at this current point in time, hilariously enough. Now, when it comes to critics, they will always try their very best to defend companies like Disney because they want to stay on their PR lists. They want early viewings, they want promotional material. And look, I mean, the critics have given this an 84%, so they are saying it is one of the better pieces of Star Wars content to release, while audiences are saying it is the worst, period. I mean, fans are absolutely hating this, and you would think that the critics at this point, after loss after loss after loss, might take a step back and say, we clearly are not in sync with audience goers, right? We clearly have different opinions than them. Why is that? Let's try to understand them. But instead, they just call us ists and phobes, and they attack us for not agreeing with their opinion, which of course is not going to gain them any viewers. That's not going to, have someone like me put my faith and my trust into them as just human beings in general. I mean, this is their job. job is to watch things and rate them, they're not watching them just for themselves. They are watching them so they can relay their, professional, allegedly, opinions to the world so that you may go to Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, see their scores, and either feel confident or not confident in the product before you go and spend money and spend your time watching something, but you can't trust critics anymore. And of course, they blame this all on fake fans and review bombers and just outraged individuals simply for daring to, again, not share the same opinions as them, which of course isn't very surprising. But as you can see, I mean, this is one of the major reasons why so many people are upset with the Acolyte, the sheer disrespect for the source material. And obviously, Disney era Star Wars has been kind of a nightmare so far. There's been a handful of decent projects, like The Mandalorian started off okay. Andor, I know people enjoyed. We, of course, had Rogue One I personally liked, and I thought The Force Awakens was a decent basis to a trilogy that just went absolutely nowhere. But at the end of the day, we have had many more losses than we have had wins, and this is a major problem. When you have somebody like Leslie Headland, Harvey Weinstein's ex-personal assistant, going into this, getting a job for probably very suspicious reasons, who's someone who does not know Star Wars, does not care or love or respect this franchise, and then they make massive retcons, you are bound to face backlash. I mean, the Acolyte made a massive retcon revealing lesbian space witches created a life from the Force. Now, of course, there has been only one rumored instance of a life being created from the Force, but now they're basically saying it's happening all the time, and he's not special. Darth Plagueis isn't special, which, of course, is not going to sit well with a lot of fans. But lesbian space witches, they couldn't even go with the Dathomir witches, the shamans. They couldn't even go with, a group like that actually had already previously existed. No, they simply just had to say, they're just sort of lesbian space witches, and that's all that it takes now. I mean, Star Wars is a massive joke, and this is why people are sick and tired of Disney and Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy's The Force is Female, direction has not worked. There's not been one single project that has been extremely successful under it. And yeah, I mean, people generally enjoyed Ahsoka, but it did still have quite a few problems. And a big reason why people enjoyed it was just because it was nostalgia bait, because of the Clone Wars, because of Anakin. And I'm glad that there were people who did enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but when you see bad project after bad project releasing, it becomes harder and harder to get someone like me excited to sit down and continue watching it. And with Episode 3 of The Acolyte, that is the nail in the coffin for Star Wars. I have previously said maybe there's a way they could turn it around. I do not believe that anymore. And it's sad because I used to love Star Wars. I love the MMO. I love Knights of the Old Republic. I have loved so many of the movies. And Star Wars used to be very special for me, just like it was a lot of other people. But there is no way they can save it if people at Disney are not taking into consideration what audiences have to say in our scores, and they're writing them off as ist and phobe behavior, and instead they're listening to critics who are clearly out of touch with the audience. They are giving this an 84% when, yes, it does deserve a 15% that the audience scores. Honestly, it deserves much lower than that. So at this point, Star Wars is dead. And instead of simply coming out and saying clearly Disney needs to change their ways and actually listen to audiences, the media is now damage controlling, saying it is embarrassing that we as the audience simply don't like this series. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.